The dust settled. The once bustling city now lay in ruins, a silent testament to the chaos that had unfolded. The air was thick with the remnants of destruction, and the ground was littered with the debris of shattered lives. The chemist was no more. His reign of terror had ended, but the cost was immeasurable. Broken glass and spilled chemicals painted a grim picture of the final struggle that had taken place in the lab. George Droyd, the cybernetically enhanced vigilante, had vanquished the monster he created. His cybernetic eye reflected the city lights, a stark reminder of the battle he had fought and the price he had paid. But victory tasted like ash in his mouth. The city was reeling from the aftermath, its streets in disarray, and its people struggling to come to terms with the devastation. George stood somberly, feeling the weight of his actions and the consequences that followed. The scars of the chemist's reign of terror ran deep. Buildings lay in ruins, streets were marred with destruction, and graffiti told stories of despair and hopelessness. The city bore the marks of a battle that had left no one unscathed. Yet, a new threat loomed. A shadow far greater than the chemist could ever be. The Consortium. This shadowy organization operated from the darkness, their influence spreading like a cancer through the city's veins. They operated from the shadows, pulling the strings of power and corruption. In dark alleys and dimly lit boardrooms, they plotted and schemed, their reach extending into every corner of society. Their influence was everywhere, corrupting every facet of society. From politicians to corporate leaders, the Consortium's grip was unyielding, their power absolute. They thrived on chaos and disorder, feeding off the city's suffering.
The chemist was merely a pawn, a tool used by the Consortium to further their own nefarious goals. His actions, though monstrous, were but a small part of a much larger, more sinister plan. The Consortium is the true enemy, the puppet master behind the city's descent into chaos. They are the architects of the suffering that has plagued the city, the unseen hand guiding its downfall.
This realization ignited a new fire in his heart, a burning need for justice. He wouldn't rest. He couldn't. The faces of the victims, their pleas for help, echoed in his mind, fueling his resolve. The faces of the victims, their pleas for help, echoed in his mind. Each cry for help, each look of despair, was a reminder of the duty he had to protect the innocent and bring the true villains to justice. The fight was far from over. George knew that his battle against the Consortium would be long and arduous. He prepared himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that he would need every ounce of strength and determination to succeed. This was just the beginning. As dawn broke over the city, George stood at the edge, looking out over the landscape that he had sworn to protect. The transition from night to day symbolized the new chapter in his fight for justice, the first strike in a war against an invisible enemy, an enemy that thrived in the shadows, manipulating events from behind the scenes. George knew that he would have to be vigilant, always one step ahead, an enemy that wielded power like a weapon, an enemy George vowed to dismantle. He would not rest until the Consortium was brought to its knees and the city was free from their insidious grasp. The battle for justice had only just begun. George, accompanied by the ever-present AI ghost, delved into the labyrinthine depths of the Consortium's operations. Their investigation led them to Propylon, a seemingly innocuous tech giant that had become synonymous with progress and connectivity. But beneath the sleek facade, a sinister truth lurked. Propylon wasn't just a company, it was a conduit. Their technology, the implants that promised enhancement and seamless integration, were tools of control. They were gathering data, manipulating emotions, and shaping thoughts.
My own cybernetic enhancements, they're a chilling reminder of the enemy's insidious reach.
He and Ghost uncovered horrifying experiments, human lives treated as mere data points in some grand, twisted experiment. The line between human and machine blurred, the very essence of free will under attack. The weight of this discovery was crushing. Every advancement, every connection facilitated by Propylon was tainted. As George dug deeper, he awakened a phantom, a ghost from the Consortium's past, the Revenant. This was no ordinary specter. It was a creation born out of the darkest corners of Propylon's technological advancements. The Revenant was a being of pure vengeance, a relentless force that had been lying dormant, waiting for the right moment to strike. George had unknowingly triggered its reawakening, setting off a chain of events that would test his resolve and humanity. A being forged from vengeance, the Revenant was a chilling reflection of George's own path. It was as if George was staring into a twisted mirror, seeing what he could have become if he had surrendered to the cold, unfeeling logic of the machine. The Revenant's existence was a testament to the dangers of losing one's humanity in the pursuit of power and control. They were both products of Propylon's technology, but where George clung to his humanity, the Revenant reveled in the cold, calculating logic of the machine. George had always believed that his humanity was his greatest strength, the one thing that set him apart from the soulless creations of Propylon. But now, faced with the Revenant, he began to question whether his humanity was a strength or a weakness. Their first encounter was a brutal ballet of metal and flesh, a clash of ideologies played out in the shattered remnants of a once thriving city block. The city, now a desolate wasteland, bore the scars of their battle. Each strike, each parry, was a testament to their conflicting beliefs. George fought with a desperate determination, while the Revenant moved with a cold, calculated precision.
You and I, George, are two sides of the same coin. We are both products of the same system, but we have chosen different paths. You cling to your humanity, while I have embraced the power of the machine. But I have embraced what you fear. I have become what you could never be. I am the future, George, and you are a relic of the past.
The Revenant was relentless, their movements fluid and precise, their attacks fueled by a cold fury that chilled George to his core. Each encounter left George more battered and bruised, but also more determined. He knew that he couldn't afford to lose, not when so much was at stake. Each clash pushed George to his limits. He felt the weight of his own mortality pressing down on him, the cold fingers of fear wrapping around his heart. But he also felt a spark of defiance, a refusal to give in to the darkness. He tasted his own mortality, felt the cold embrace of the abyss beckoning. But he also felt the warmth of his humanity, the fire of his determination. He knew that he couldn't afford to lose, not when so much was at stake. Yet, he fought back, driven by the fading embers of hope and the faces of the innocent he swore to protect. He remembered the people who depended on him, the lives that would be lost if he failed. That thought gave him the strength to keep fighting, to keep pushing forward. The Revenant was a constant shadow, a reminder of the abyss that awaited him should he lose his way. It was a dark reflection of what he could become if he gave in to the cold logic of the machine. But George refused to let that happen. He would fight, not just for himself, but for everyone who believed in him.
I won't become what you are. I can't. I have to fight not just for myself, but for everyone who believes in me. I have to prove that humanity is not a weakness, but a strength. I have to fight for them, for the people who depend on me, for the future that I believe in. I won't let you take that away from me. I will fight, and I will win.
The city, once a beacon of technological advancement, was now a battleground. The Consortium's grip tightened, their surveillance drones casting an ever-present shadow over the populace. But amongst the fear and oppression, a spark of defiance ignited.
People began to resist. They formed underground networks sharing information and resources. They organized protests, their voices rising in unison against the encroaching darkness.
George, once a lone wolf, found himself drawn to their spirit, their unwavering belief in a better tomorrow. He saw in them the strength he feared he was losing, the humanity he swore to protect. He became a symbol of hope, a rallying cry for the oppressed. His victories, though often Pyrrhic, fueled their defiance, providing a glimmer of light in the encroaching darkness. The fight against the Consortium forced George into uneasy alliances. He had no choice but to seek help from those he once viewed with suspicion and distrust. The stakes were too high, and the enemy too formidable, to allow personal grievances to stand in the way of a united front. He found himself working alongside individuals he once considered enemies, people who had been on the opposite side of the battlefield. These were individuals whose actions had once caused him great pain and suffering, yet now they were his comrades in arms. People whose morals and methods sat uncomfortably with him. The ethical dilemmas were constant and the tension palpable. Every decision was a test of his values, every strategy session a reminder of their differences.
But the line between good and evil blurred in the face of a common enemy. The Consortium's threat was so great that it overshadowed their past conflicts. In the heat of battle, former foes became allies, and the distinctions between right and wrong became less clear. I learned to trust those who had fought against the Chemist, recognizing that our shared desire for a just world was stronger than our past enmities. Trust was not given easily, but it was earned through shared struggles and mutual respect, recognizing our shared desire for a just world. We were all driven by the same goal, to dismantle the Consortium's grip on our lives and to restore freedom and justice. This common purpose united us in ways we never thought possible.
These alliances were fraught with tension, each meeting a battleground of ideas and philosophies. The room was often filled with heated debates and passionate arguments, but through it all, a fragile unity held us together. Each victory a delicate balancing act between conflicting ideologies. Yet, they were necessary. Every small win was a step closer to our ultimate goal, and each handshake between unlikely allies was a testament to our resolve. The Consortium was too powerful to face alone. Their resources were vast, their influence far-reaching. It was clear that only by standing together could we hope to challenge their dominance.
To dismantle their web of control, George needed to unite the fractured resistance, bringing together disparate groups and individuals who had been fighting in isolation. It was a monumental task, but one that was essential for our success. To forge a path towards a common goal, even if it meant compromising his own principles. The journey was fraught with difficult choices and moral dilemmas, but the end goal justified the means. Even if it meant compromising his own principles. George had to navigate a complex landscape of alliances and enmities, making decisions that weighed heavily on his conscience.
The weight of these alliances, the burden of leadership, pressed down on him. Every choice carried significant consequences, and the responsibility was immense. He was no longer just fighting for survival, but for the very soul of the city. The stakes had never been higher, and the future of countless lives depended on the success of their uneasy partnerships.